But please welcome the chairman of the ICC T20 USA, Mr. Peter Hutton.
Champion
Thank you very much. Does this look like someone who's running a massive global...
I think you'll find that someone else is doing all the hard work.
So on that, Pete, same question I asked Greg. Who are you and what is your role? What are you up to? I know you do a lot of things, but what with the cricket at the moment?
I mean, who am I? Basically, I'm a sports fan that suddenly found a way for 40 years of being paid to be a sports fan. So that's quite an achievement in my book. Grew up as a cricket fan, played in the same team as my dad, who played in the same team as his dad, and we were in that very small world of Yorkshire cricket. And then 94, my life changed because I bluffed my way into going to India to produce domestic cricket in India, and ended up staying there for not the 3 months that I was contracted for, but the 8 years. And then spent 8 years setting up and running 10 sports in India, which is based out of Dubai, but really was aimed at India and Pakistan. And then sort of dotted around doing a few jobs that took me away from cricket. So being in Paris, looking at Eurosport, and then coming to California to run sport for Meta. And just brilliant that I found an excuse to come and watch cricket again and take my son to a game. And, yesterday, Kieran Foley was in the crowd. I saw him bring his son for the first time to watch a cricket match. And that's really what we're in the business of doing here. Giving people opportunities to see the sport, enjoy the sport, and see the value of what we're bringing.
Amazing. And I mean, we're going to go behind the scenes into the tournament, not so much about how fast the balls are being bowled and who's taking the most wickets and stuff and whether America beat Pakistan this afternoon, but what has it taken really to build the T20 World Cup in the US and the Caribbean?
I mean, I think it's probably one of the most complicated things I've ever seen in terms of operations, because it's got so many stakeholders trying to achieve so many different things. And I don't really say that as a criticism, it's just the reality. And building an event like this in the US is certainly complicated. Doing it in combination with the West Indies is really complicated. And then you've also got to look after a lot of stakeholders who have different stakes. So Sanjog here from Star, it's all his fault the games are starting at 10:30 in the morning. But, understandable. It's paying the bills. It's an incredible way of funding the ICC. And I think that's one of the challenges with cricket and what we're trying to do, in that you've got a lot of people with different agendas, but the thing that has brought people together is that sense of there's a massive opportunity here in the US. And it's not just commercial, it's also there is a fan base here already, and there is a potential to grow a fan base. And that's what makes this project so exciting, is that you can see it changing people's perception. And brilliant that Vijay is doing the last session today, because we're really sort of taking on the baton, and then we'll hand it to Major League Cricket, and they will hand it to the Olympics, where the cricket is coming here to the LA Olympics, and we're trying to build something. And, we're part of that journey, and I think it's really important that we're aware that we're just part of that journey.
So what have the highlights been so far, and have there been any problems?
I mean, one or two problems, yeah. It's been a really challenging event, and I think back before I even got involved, the challenges started because, first of all, I think the ICC were really brave to say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it in a big way. And we want to be in New York. We're going to create an impression by being in New York and putting our foot in the ground here. And they tried to create a stadium in New York where cricket was played, in the Bronx. And the mayor was in favour of it, and there was lots of energy, but it just didn't happen. And as a result, we ended up in a place in Long Island, and Nassau County adopted us, and really an environment where there is hardly any cricket. There's a really nice guy from Long Island Cricket who comes to see us every day, who's ecstatic about what we're doing for him. But it's really building in new territory here in New York. So that's been the first problem. It's like, what's the home here? But then since then, the problems have been various, some pretty unpredictable. So, obviously I'd grown up watching The Sopranos and didn't think I was going to be in it until we started building a stadium in New York. But it's certainly been a learning process to get that done. And then, we got a phone call one day, and Brett, the CEO, who's done an unbelievable job, said, "You're not going to believe today's problem." I'm like, "What's happened today?" He says, "We've got a pair of nesting owls on the pitch in Florida that need to be looked after. So we've had to create like a conservatory for the owls in Florida." And then, of course, we had the tornado in Dallas just after we'd put our giant screen in. So again, a little bit of a challenge there. So, there's definitely been a few sort of bumps along the road. But it makes it worthwhile when you see a crowd like yesterday and you see 20,000 people there for India against Ireland in a stadium that's bigger than Lord's, bigger than Headingley, as big as the stadium in Delhi. It's a huge stadium. And people will see empty seats, but they have to see it in the context of that is a massive crowd. And we're talking Long Island. It's not even easy to get to from Manhattan, let alone the rest of the country. So we're proving there's a value here. We're proving there's an audience here.
I know a lot of people asked you for tickets for Sunday, but I definitely asked you for a lift as well, didn't I? But and look, I'm the foreigner here. I'm the non-American. How does a World Cup cricket in America stack up against? And we are talking about all the other sports in one of the sessions following. But how does it stack up against those other traditional tournaments here? Well,
of course, they're used to having world events here, but just normally with 2 countries in them. So it's a bit of a change having a lot of countries involved. And it's nice to see, the stories that are emerging, to see Uganda win, to see that Nepali crowd, going mad in the stadium. So brilliant to see those things come in. And one of the things that I learned from my time in Meta is that we would permanently do data analysis of what people cared about. And you'd look at the sports numbers. And cricket was up there. Cricket was in the top 10 very regularly with a really impressive demographic, high-income demographic, very much a youth demographic. So you realise that there is a fan base here that cares. And it's not just about tickets for India-Pakistan, although I'll be very glad when that game's finished with. But, there's people that genuinely care about the sport all over the country. And what the ICC have done by coming here is give them a chance to not just see it in person themselves, but also show it to their friends and explain what it is that they care about so much.
So you've talked about the highlights and some of the issues you've had. What if you learn all those learnings, what would you do differently? If you had to do it again?
Yeah, we won't be doing it again. I think the main thing is you just spend more time, right? And you try and build more consensus and a sense of purpose behind it, which is an impossible task because you have all these different people and different stakeholders. But if you look at a sport that's done well here in the last sort of 2-3 years, it would be Formula One. And what Formula One did was they took the risk. They said, we're going to take a smaller rights revenue and get better exposure. So they took a loss from ESPN on the basis of there's a long-term gain there. They opened up social media and gave more content to the players, which is something that the ICC struggles to do, to be honest, despite Finn's efforts, because there's contractual restrictions. They did the Drive to Survive. They gave people access to the dressing rooms and behind the scenes. And it would be great if we can do more of that and say, OK, we're going to bring all the stakeholders in the sport together and we're going to change the rules and we'll take a financial risk and we'll make this work. And of course, that's sort of slightly wishful thinking because the risk that's been taken is huge. The gamble that's been taken by the ICC is huge, and I respect that. But I think if you wanted to go again, you'd say, OK, what more can we do? What more can we open up to make this relevant and to touch as many people as possible?
So the same question I asked Greg, but how are you measuring success as the chairman?
I think the main thing is, what is about legacy. And, everyone sort of has focused on this stadium because it's a nice, big, shiny thing. And it's an incredible place to go to. But what's really impressive is the things that are going to be left behind. And those are emotional legacies and new fans coming in touch. But there's also the work of Farah Gorsi here, who's building the engagement in the schools and the communities. There's 100 schools doing events around this Cricket World Cup. There's equipment being left by DP World as one of the sponsors. There's work being done on the ground across the country. We've got The drop-in wickets, hopefully we leave those as a legacy that can be used both in stadia and in training going forward. So I think it's really important to think about this, again, as a step in a journey where we're trying to build up the sport in the country, and this is a chance to build attention, but also to give little bits of legacy like that.
What's a drop-in wicket?
A drop-in wicket is a headache that arrives on a boat from Australia and then gets transported on 2 lorries in 2 halves up from Florida to New York, and then you put it in the ground and then you just pray it works. So that's a drop-in wicket.
Okay. Very good. So who do you think are the real heroes of the tournament so far, of the operation of the tournament so far?
Yeah, I'll spin away from the players, which is the easy answer, and say, look, Brett Jones, who's the CEO, has done an unbelievable job. And he's not here today because he's busy being stressed. And, he has dealt with so many problems, and he got parachuted in halfway through, and it's a really tough job, and you've got to corral all these different people, get a load of contracts signed, and then get people to deliver on the contracts. And his patience and his enthusiasm has been terrific. But loads of people have been part of that journey. Both from the ICC, and Claire Furlong's here today, Chris Tetley, they've lived this project from the start. Sam Coleman in the finance department has done an unbelievable job, and you've got to be nice to legal and finance, I've learned in my various jobs, despite your instincts. So I'll also say congratulations to Stuart Goldfarb, who's been the lawyer who's dealt with so much for us as well, and given us local American knowledge that we clearly needed. And again, credit to Farah and the people on the ground who are not just doing this for the tournament, but are doing this year-round and are building the sport here, working with USA Cricket, working with Major League Cricket, and genuinely have that sense of purpose behind them.
And what do you see as the impact of the sport in America and the legacy it's going to leave behind?
I think there's plenty of positives that can come out of this in the ICC, and it's easy to talk about it in business terms because that tends to be where the headlines go. And this is already a major market for cricket. Thanks to Willow TV and the business that Vijay has built over the years, cricket is in the top 3 or 4 markets in the world for TV rights money for cricket already. So USA is a significant economic contributor already, and I think it will only grow. But I think there's potential here to build community, to build fan bases. What Major League Cricket is doing is unbelievable in terms of bringing in serious investment into multiple cities and building something for the future. Sanjog was saying today, Star have just committed to a 2-year deal to broadcast MLC in India. That is fantastic news. It shows the credibility of what's being built here, and I think it's a really good sign for the future.
Okay, and now final question. Am I allowed to ask the chairman of the tournament who he thinks is going to win?
Yes, you're allowed to ask. And I have to thank 2 more people because I knew I'd forget people. But Sunil Gulati and Catherine Carlson, also with me on the board of T20, both people with incredible sporting history, and they've volunteered their time to make this work. And I think, again, credit to the volunteers, right? Because there's a lot of people working on this, it's their job, loads more people that are volunteering. And to go to your question, I find it really tough to look beyond India, given the way they played yesterday, the strength in that squad. But I love the idea that USA are going to go on a run. And if they can beat Pakistan today, that's as big a headline for me as India winning the final.
Hang on. I'm not looking at an illegal stream. They are, United States are 111 for 2 after 14, chasing 159.
So right on the edge.
But this is more exciting than that cricket match, ladies and gentlemen. Do not look at your phones. Ladies and gentlemen, so Peter, thank you so much. Peter and Greg from ICC and the T20, thank you so much and good luck.